So I will share this data that I looked up yesterday, and then I want to get to the calls on this. And I actually want to give Craig Hoffman credit for this, because this is something we were talking in the press box about, and then he kind of gave me the idea. I saw he was diving into where on the field maybe Jayden Daniels liked to throw. But I looked up the heat map last night via, you could do it with, I use PFF, but I'm sure Next Gen Stats has it as well. And I just wanted to know, when Jayden Daniels throws the ball, where does he like to throw the ball?
Mm-hmm.
Jayden Daniels on throws at the line of scrimmage to 20 yards downfield, based on the math I did on his throws via PFF. When throwing horizontally out wide, okay?
Right.
So if he's not between the hash marks, he's throwing toward the sideline, left or right. On outside throws, he throws right 74% of the time and left 26% of the time. That is a pretty massive difference. That is a 3-to-1 ratio. Jayden Daniels drops back. He throws right way more often than he throws left. Some of that is, by the way, anytime he leaves the pocket to his right, you're obviously splitting the field in half. That's your predominant side. That's your throwing hand, whatever you're going to roll toward the side you throw with. But it's also been said by a couple broadcasters this season that defensive coaches have said, when he leaves the pocket and goes to the right, he's going to pass. When he leaves the pocket and goes to the left, he's going to run, which is a tell I'd say they've got to figure out and maybe make sure that that's not so stark that everybody knows about it. But again, I'm going to tell you the numbers. 74% of his throws outside between 0 and 20 yards are to the right, just 26% to the left, which in and of itself doesn't really matter, except that Terry McLaurin almost always lines up on the left. Terry McLaurin has lined up on the left on all but 27 routes this season. He has run well over 300 routes. On the right, he's been targeted 8 times. He's got 7 catches for 170 yards and 2 touchdowns, including that amazing game-sealing catch against the Bengals. But if you remember, Kingsbury came out and said that that was like a play that McLaurin and Daniels drew up on the sideline, and he tried to get a timeout because he couldn't flip the formation, and they ran it anyway, essentially. Meaning, like, he was trying to flip him to the left.
Yeah, he's like, I don't like him over here on the right side. Let's not do it.
And so he just went and caught the touchdown in the end zone. And maybe it's not quite as stark as, that Kingsbury was just some passenger. But that was kind of the way he told it, and they told it that week. But my point is just to bring up that McLaurin almost always lines up on the left, and Daniels' proclivity is at a 3-to-1 clip to throw to the right. Weird that Noah Brown has 10 more targets than McLaurin over the last month.
So it could be any number of things to contribute to this. Okay, so I'm going to chip away at it, then come back to the total point. I'm not going to lose the forest for the trees here. Let's say, for the sake of argument, Terry McLaurin all the time is a single receiver to the left, and there's more options that are to the right, which I think happens an awful lot. The strong side of the formation, the tight end, a slot receiver, an outside receiver, a running back leaking out of the backfield, often goes away from where the coverage is shaded, where you're going to win a numbers game. If you're throwing one of those quick hitters, it feels like more of them go to the opposite side of Terry McLaurin. I think that's one. 2, again, more receiving options over there. Coverage dictated towards Terry McLaurin, so other guys are open. That's maybe some more numbers going over there. Even with those factors weighing this number down, it's still George Stark. It's still Tony Stark. It's still,
Ned Stark.
Ned Stark even. Thank you for bringing up Ned Stark. I didn't know you had that in the file, but you did. Good for you. What does he say? What's his famous line? Ned Stark says,
"Winter is coming."
Look at this. Look at this game of Paulson over here.
Thank you.
I love it. I'm proud of you. Shake the tail when you walk.
I didn't know if it was that or take the ring to Mordor.
He was in both.
Okay. No,
he was in
wasn't.
both. Yeah.
Wow.
Now, he doesn't say take the ring to Mordor. He goes, it is a gift. We must wield it. And then they're like, you cannot wield it. There are none of us who can. Through a power, use me. That's the whole thing. Anyway, the point of the dude's story is there's some reason why you're going to go right more than you go left in this setup because of where Terry McLaurin is. The net, the end result is what you just said. Is the last part to me is the part I care about the most. Over the last several weeks, Noah Brown has more targets than Terry McLaurin. Nope, wrong, broken, fix it, shuffle up the snow globe and do it again.
Well, Jay yesterday on our show was fantastic, and we didn't even really bring up the Terry McLaurin thing, just so we're all on the same page. It's not like I asked him, hey, we think Terry McLaurin needs to be moved around. What do you think about that? Jay was on our show, and I asked him about Kingsbury's offense, and he said, I'll just read the quote here. This transcript got a lot of play last night, passed around Twitter at Grant H. Paulson. He said, I think he does a good job in the running game, by the way.
What a time to be alive, yeah.
That's an interesting thing, right? Not the passing game. He says, but I think some of his passing game, if I had any recommendations for him at all, it would be move Terry around a little bit. You can't always put him on the left. Use the word Buckeye and have Noah Brown and Terry switch sides. It's not that hard. Line him up on the right side. Put him to the field sometimes, not to the boundary. Then, because just to clarify that, like the boundary meaning he's on the shorter side of the field a lot of the time. And so he's running some of these, there's a little less you can do with that. Where if you put him out wide and then you run the in breakers, he's got some more real estate. He says the slant to Noah Brown, let Terry run that slant and just say the word Buckeye and let Terry be the outside guy. But his point is this is a former play caller, coach, coordinator who had as much or more success offensively in the league as Kingsbury has had. And he's saying this seems like a pretty easy thing you could do. And it's just not something, for whatever reason, Kingsbury, with his guys in the past, Hopkins, McLaurin, otherwise, has ever really navigated away from. I want guys to line up on the same side. And supposedly it's just based on tempo and the air raid and the timing of getting to the line and running as many plays as possible and not moving guys back and forth. But I thought that was fascinating from Jay Gruden. But when you actually dive into the numbers, these are just two facts. McLaurin almost never lines up on the right. Daniels prefers massively to throw to the right. And I'll add a third fact. When McLaurin has been targeted on the right, 7 catches, 8 targets for an average of basically 30 yards per catch and a couple of touchdowns. Maybe you'd try to mix that in just a little bit more. But the phones have blown up. The question for you guys is, why have they lost 3 in a row? Jim's in Spotsylvania. What's up, Jim?
Hey, guys, I'm going to pick up on what you were talking about, being behind on the yardage after first down, et cetera. This reminds me of a Jordan Reed situation. P. Robinson, we got to have an uncomfortable conversation. Great guy, credible talent. But if you ain't between the lines, you're not helping us. And maybe it's time to start rethinking this moment, because now you got him down, you got Eckler down. What kind of running game are you going to have this week? I mean, I'm back in the Larry Brown days. I'm really old. That guy came on, changed the world for us. I'm seeing an issue here in the running game. Look at the beginning. Look at where we're at. That's the problem.
Appreciate you, dude. So, yeah, I mean, the success, the early down success of the run game has clearly dissipated. It was at an unsustainable level to start the season, right? Those, not non-Tampa Bay division. But since week 2 through, what would you say, week 7, week 8, et cetera, they were basically, it was 2nd and 4 before you blinked. Almost every time, 2nd and 8, they were getting first downs on runs. Everything was open. Defenses have now adjusted to some degree, whatever they're taking away certain gaps, figuring out your tendencies. I'm not smart enough to know every single thing that they're doing every time, stacking the box, et cetera. But it's also not as if the other first down plays are working. It's the little slip screens, the little, any kind of jet action or anything sort of quick towards the sideline. Nothing is working on early downs all of a sudden over the last few weeks. And that sets up these really bad situations that no offense would be able to deal with consistently.
Brian Robinson is injury riddled at this point. And I think part of it is his physical bruising style and his size. He's a big target. He takes on contact. Yep. It's a violent position. There's a lot of collisions, and he's almost never running in space, right? He's running, think about it. It's between the tackles. It's where all the bodies are. You're getting folded up. You're getting crunched. But while he played mostly in every game last year, he's kind of one of those guys that's always got the Q next to his name. It's like
always
he's not
practicing.
Mm-hmm. There's something going on. And I actually agree with you when you say there's a conversation that needs to be had. He's a very popular player, and he should be. But I think they absolutely, I said this yesterday, I think running back should be a need for them this offseason. While I like B-Rob a lot, I'd love a situation where he is a short yardage kind of battering ram thumper, maybe salt a game away second half type guy. But I want more speed. I want more twitch in this offense. I think they need a burner. You watch the really elite backs like Barkley, and if they get a crevice, they're gone. Robinson, on a perfectly kind of developed play, not even perfectly blocked, but like he broke a tackle, got through the line, nobody's around, and it's him in the open field. His longest run of the year for 40 yards got caught from behind. Like, that is a house call for a running back with legitimate strike up the band speed. And I think that's the way they got to go offensively this offseason, is look for some of that. Mike's in D.C. What's up, Mike?
Good evening, fellas. How y'all doing?
Good, buddy.
I have 3 things to say. De'Armond Brown, McCaffrey, and Sennett. We need to get them more involved. Jayden Daniels is running this show. He's not worried. He's sitting back relaxed. He's cool in the game. And one more thing. They're watching our films every week. We're running some of the same plays. And they need to put De'Ami Brown back on punt return. He got a lot of speed also. So that's all I have to say.
Thanks, buddy.
Appreciate you, dude.
He's a big De'Ami Brown guy.
Likes De'Ami Brown.
De'Ami made one nice catch this past week going up the ladder on a dig route inside, which I thought, was probably as good a catch as he's made this year, maybe other than the touchdown early on. But if your point is they're not using their weapons well enough, I think I could co-sign on that. They've given Sinnott no chance to impact the offense. Bates gets more targets and more catches, which I think is pretty ridiculous. And I would like to see at least the opportunity for Luke McCaffrey to get involved. And someone could say, oh, well, if he's wide open, then they'd be throwing to him. Everyone says he's so open. Everyone's talking about the separation score. Let's throw him some passes and see what happens. Because until I see him either dropping passes or catching it and not getting any yak or not being helpful at a dependent position, I'm not going to blame him for the targets he's not getting.
With you.
Especially when the SEP score is pretty good.
Since it's a second-round pick. And what they've done a couple straight weeks, Philadelphia, and then this one is sort of wait with different formations throughout where John Bates comes on as a blocker. Then when you least expect it, here's John Bates as a receiver. And there's something to that. That's smart. Well, what it's resulted in is a plotting guy that should have easily gotten a first down by 4 or 5 yards that made it close. I actually thought he got it, and the call was bad, but whatever.
That was the Eagles game before the fourth down they never got.
And then a fumble this week. So, it's an awesome move to make teams, not expect something, second guess, whatever. That can be Sinnott.
Yeah.
To me.
There is a role for him. Bates is actually a super helpful, good football player.
100%.
Awesome blocker. And as a third tight end, he can make a catch here or there if you're not looking for yak or rumbling or big plays. But when you're going to him, when your offense is sputtering like they did against the Eagles or like they did this past week, it's a tell. It is a screaming loudmouth into a microphone glass. Or maybe a megaphone saying, like, you're lacking weapons. But I would love to see Sinnott, who was an animal in the preseason and who was one of the best weapons at his position in college football last year, just get a shot to get a target or a catch in the open field and see what happens. Let's go to James in Silver Spring. James, you're on Grant and Danny. We're asking what the biggest reason is for Washington's 3-game losing streak.
Hey, guys. Thanks for taking my call.
Hey, bud.
I'm long time listener, first time caller.
Thank you for making the call.
There we go. I think it's talent. Early in the season, our B players were going against other B players. And so now that our B players are banged up, they're basically C players. Now we're going against other teams' A players. What A player do we have on offense besides Jayden Daniels?
McLaurin?
Well, yeah, I would say. Go ahead. Sorry.
I don't think McLaurin's an A player. I think he's a very good B player. He's an 89. That's almost an A, but it's not an A.
Yeah, fair enough.
You're going school grades. Yeah, I mean, look, I guess that's semantics a little bit. Like, where does he rank among receivers? Probably back end top 20. Is that an A? Is that a B? If you're saying you got to be a star. I mean, respectfully, Jayden Daniels has not played like an A player over the last month. Now, I don't think he's been bad. I don't think he's the problem. But you're just kind of chalking him up as an A player based on the early part of the year. Well, if we're only chalking guys up based on their best performance of the season, Terry McLaurin's had some A games too, right? I guess there's more sample size there. But look, you're not going to get much of an argument from us. And Danny, I don't want to speak for you. If you call in and say they lack elite talent, no kidding. Absolutely. I think they got some really good players on both sides of the ball. A few of them. Their best player this year, circuit to circuit's probably been Frankie Louvu, who's been outstanding. I think he would be a first division starter for any championship level team. The Lions, the Chiefs, they'd be lucky to have him. McLaurin would be a baller on those couple of teams, if that's the threshold, right? I think Jeremy Chin has played really, really well since the first couple of weeks of the season. He's been great. You could throw some guys into that conversation. Daniels at his apex, but they are lacking clearly like the really high-end talent. And some of the guys that we thought were that just haven't played like that. I mean, where is Daron Payne, by the way?
Yeah. That's been a huge one.
What is going on with Daron Payne? The Cowboys had 2 guards missing as part of the $100 million in cap space.
That should have been the Daron Payne game.
He had a sack on a play where Cooper Rush was trying to waste time and get sacked. So respectfully, I don't know how much I count that one to your 2.5 on the year or whatever. But there's just not enough impact plays. I think he's got 5 hits on the quarterback this year. Disco and Laurel, you're on G&D.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. How are you?
Good, buddy.
Hey, so I think 3 things. I think number one, I think we're seeing the real ramifications of the positions that we have consistently whiffed on in the draft and free agency. No William Jackson, no Jahan Dotson. We whiffed on Davis. There are a few others. So I think we're really seeing the consequence of look at the positions that we've drafted to be impact players, and they're not impact positions. Second, I think the league is not so much catching up to our scheme, but catching up to our personnel. Terry McLaurin is a very, very good player, but he can be taken out of games. And you don't have another player. You don't have other players. Okay, we're going to take Terry, but we've got this other guy. And then the last thing, Grant, and I totally agree with you, and I think we saw a lot of this with Mike Shanahan, is that why can't we have other players that we've drafted high? So why can't we scheme them up?
So
I don't
true. Shanahan did that. He killed me with that.
Yes. So my last point is, and I don't want to, well, I guess if I'm saying I'm putting it out in the universe, but Zach Ertz has, incentives in his contract, receptions and things like that. I don't know if that has anything to do with it, but with the lack of personnel, the league has caught up to that. And one last thing, I do want to say, now looking at Jayden Daniels now, I thought that this front office has done a magnificent job thus far, but I do wonder if we should have been a little bit more aggressive with a receiver. Thank you.
Yeah, I thought so all offseason, and I had to shut up and eat it while their offense was scoring 38 a game for a month. But now I think, to your point, I think you and I are in lockstep on this one, Disco. I think it's now come back to kind of haunt them a little bit. You can get away with it a lot of times when you're out scheming people, bullying them, knocking them around. You're playing Carolina, who's looking for golf reservations. You get into the teeth of it as tape gets out there and teams make adjustments. I think then it comes time to a bit more mano a mano. I think they're suffering there a little bit.